Alrighty, my mic is falling over. Welcome back to another top 10. I did miss a day on the 7 days of top 10, but I've been busy. So, today we are going over my top 10 favorite video games of all time. Um, the last video game list of the year, hopefully, and one that I'm very excited to cover because I have a lot of things to say. It's just going to be me gushing for freaking 25 minutes. And yeah, these are my opinion. These are my favorite games. It doesn't have to be yours. We have probably have very different taste in games. If we have similar tastes, good. We could probably be friends. Let's get started. I want to mention some of the honorable mentions, 11 through 21. I had to do 21 because um, I wanted to mention one other game. So honorable mentions we have from 21 to 11. We have Wolf Among Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Tell Me Why, Guardians of the Galaxy, Final Fantasy IX, Life is Strange: True Colors, Yakuza 0, Detroit Become Human, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and Final Fantasy 7. All great games, phenomenal games in their own right. However, don't quite make the cut for me. Don't quite make the list, in my opinion. Number 10. Let's get it started. Yakuza Kiwami. Now, Yakuza Kiwami, I feel like is a game in which I've probably already spoken about a decent amount of things on this list in previous videos this past week, but Yakuza Kiwami I feel like is a game that is very underappreciated in my opinion, or at least underrated, because I know a lot of people don't aren't massive fans of Kiwami, in which that they say like there are a lot of other games that are better. I could see that from a certain perspective. However, I think for me it's just I love Kiwami so much. I love especially because of coming off of Zero and seeing the development of Kiryu and Nishiki and Majima, and how they go from Zero where they're like beta them, like they're just like in their pre stages, and then you get to the Kiwami and it's like the characters that evolved, and these are the characters you're going to see. And it's just in Zero, it's just good to see them at like in their beginnings, and now it's like how did they get to this point, and why is that story with Kiryu and Nishiki so tragic in a way. And I love the combat system. It's probably my favorite combat system in the Yakuza game, and overall I just really love the game, and um, would play it again over and over and over if I had the time. Number 9, Kingdom Hearts 2. I haven't talked about this game this past week because I played this game for the first time last year. And my thing with Kingdom Hearts 2 compared to the other Kingdom Hearts games, I've made a quick review on this game. I made a quick review on actually funniest part. I made a quick review on every single game on this list, even most of the honorable mentions. Like the only ones I haven't done is like Guardians of the Galaxy, Ghost of Tsushima, Wolf Among Us, things like that. But every single one I've made a quick review on, so go check those out. But the thing about Kingdom Hearts 2 compared to the other games is I feel like Kingdom Hearts 1, where it suffers for me is that I feel like Kingdom Hearts 1 isn't like my target demographic as a teenager and playing this game with like goofy Nomura humor, and these worlds and movies that are I can't appreciate enough because I'm way older. Like movies like Aladdin, I think it's like Aladdin and Hercules are movies that I really enjoy. But other than that, like Alice in Wonderland and Nightmare Before Christmas, like Alice in Wonderland, Little Mermaid, Peter Pan, things like that is something I can't really get behind because it's not something I really grew up watching, or rather, I watched them growing up. It's just I don't have any fond memories of them, and it is just not my. It's not for me. That's the thing with Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 3 and Birth by Sleep are technically both are for me. I think the thing about Birth by Sleep is relies too much on princesses, relies too much on the princesses and their worlds and blah blah blah. But even after that, I think Birth by Sleep's combat system is kind of meh. I love Birth by Sleep. It's my second favorite Kingdom Hearts game, but I think the combat system is kind of meh. And pretty much that's about it when it comes to Birth by Sleep. And then Kingdom Hearts 3, I like it more than others do. I love all the worlds, or most of the worlds, and I don't mind the story and the ending as much as a lot of other people did. But the thing about Kingdom Hearts 2, I feel like I played Kingdom Hearts 2 at the right time, where these characters and the worlds that they go to are movies. First of all, the characters are older, more mature. So Sora is not as much as a goofy kid anymore. He's more of like a teenager aspect, teenage Sora. And while he's still very dumb, very much an idiot, Sora has this kind of maturity to him that I can get behind. And the worlds of the movies, like the worlds that they go to, I have a stronger attachment to these set of movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, Tron, Lion King, things like that. Nightmare Before Christmas, once again. I have a stronger attachment, so going into these worlds and seeing all that was phenomenal for me. And I really enjoyed the story. I mean, I'm not the biggest Roxas fan I'm not as big a Roxas fan as a lot of people are, and I know a lot of people are, but I do think that that entire thing with Twilight Town was really cool, and Organization 13 and how Roxas played into that was all very cool. You have to go play 358 to understand that one. But other than that, I think the Kingdom Hearts 2 combat is at its best. It is the best combat system in a Kingdom Hearts game, and you cannot convince me otherwise. And overall, I just had a lot of fun with it. Number 18, God of War 2018. Once again, this is recorded before I get to Ragnarok on the channel, on the second channel, and same thing I've said previously goes for this one, goes for here. Combat is amazing, story is amazing. One thing I wish there was there like more characters to make the world feel a bit more alive. Of course, I do understand why that is. However, for me at least, it just kind of threw me off way more than I expected to. But other than that, this game is just a perfect 10 out of 10. But the thing about it is that the thing about the games above it is that I personally enjoyed these games more than God of War. It's not that they're saying it's better. I argue that God of War is actually better than a decent amount of games in the top 7 at this point. But it's just based off of enjoyability, I enjoyed it more, and I would probably play those over God of War if I had to choose. Not saying God of War is a bad game. It made the top 10 after all. It's really, really good. I love it so much. Number 7 and number 6, I had a hard time placing because for me, these are games that I could really go back and forth if they really wanted to. I could swap these games over and over and over again. I still wouldn't come to a verdict on them. So I'm gonna kind of say these right here. These can be swapped back and forth if they really wanted to. Number 7, Dragon Quest XI. Dragon Quest XI, I think, has the best turn-based combat in any JRPG. Even better than the one above it. Even better than another one above it. I feel like the story is like a very reminiscent of like old school JRPGs, you know, like your old school Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy games, but better in the way that it adds a lot of depth to the characters. The world is amazing, you could say. Like at first, like the first half of the game, the world is just like bright and colorful and a joy to go through. And then as you get to the second half of the game, where after you have your like FF6 moment where everything goes horribly wrong, finding all your characters again and going through this world that is very much in ruin, and no one's okay. All the townspeople are very much struggling. Going through that world is a lot, and I think that second half of the game makes the world better. Like all these characters either finding other people or going through trials and tribulations to, you know, come back together and defeat the final boss, Morrigan, the main villain. It's just a very uplifting story, you could say, of, you know, getting over what held you back in the past and persevering. And I think that's that's one of the reasons why I love Dragon Quest XI. Ironically, one of the reasons why I love the next game on this list, number 6, Persona 5 Royal. P5R also has these themes. I'd argue that technically P5R isn't it is but I feel like its combat is better than Dragon Quest XI, but I enjoyed it more. Um, and even then it doesn't, the turn base doesn't beat anything, something like Shin Megami Tensei 5. But I feel as though P5R, like, once again, as I said before, it kind of loses points for me because I know what the game is. I know what it was about before playing it, and yeah, I still had a lot of fun with it. Evidently, it's still on this list. I feel like it would have been higher if it was like a first time playthrough for me. And but I love all the characters. I love most of the palaces except for Akumura. That one can go burn in hell. I love most of the demons and the demon designs. I love all of it. The story is great. But for me, it just kind of loses points for not being for like me not playing it. This is kind of just a me thing for me not playing it blind, right? And it's unfortunate because if I was playing it blind, it'd probably be like way higher up. But yeah, overall, the themes of this game, um, about like I said, overcoming and getting through tough times and standing up to society and people that treat you horribly wrong is very appealing to me, especially me now where I'm going through a lot personally. But P5R, it just was great. It was great all around. Number 5. Oh, this one's kind of fitting. The game that I think I enjoyed the most on this list. This is Devil May Cry 5. Now, I wasn't a massive DFC fan going into this. I knew the stories of all of the games. I knew what they were about. I knew what was going on for the most part, but I wouldn't say I was the biggest fan. And so going into Devil May Cry 5, I was like, okay, I'm expected to have fun with this, but I'm not expecting like anything amazing. Played it on my second channel. Go watch that there. But coming out of Devil May Cry 5, and while I was playing it, I was like, this is just phenomenal in every way possible. In which the combat was phenomenal. It was so much fun, chaining things together, coming up with combos, and just using wacky weapons to kill demons. Like you could ride on freaking Goliath or Nightmares what it was. Ride on Nightmare's back as V, or ride on a flying arm as Nero. Virgil Judgment Cut is just a lot of fun, and then the freaking motorcycle, everything that Dante has is a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, using all of those weapons. And even replaying the game, I had a lot of fun using everything, and it never really got old to me. The story is really good for Devil May Cry standards, at least. The story is really good. I think it's probably the best Devil May Cry story thus far. And personally, if you just want to have a fun time with the game, or have a fun time, relax with a video game, I wouldn't say really. Relax is the wrong word, but if you want to have fun, you want to enjoy yourself to the fullest, then I would highly recommend you play Devil May Cry 5. Number 4. This on a previous list of mine I said was my favorite game of all time, and going into this year, it still was, but that has changed because it has been bumped down to number 4, and that's because I've played a decent amount of games this year that I personally would call better. Number 4 is Xenoblade Chronicles, specifically Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Now, I've said this, I've gone on the record saying I love 3. I'm not a massive fan of 2, but I feel like the thing about 1 for me is how 1, I feel like it's kind of nostalgic in a way in which Xenoblade 1, I feel like was, if I remember correctly, was actually the first JRPG that I ever took interest in. Whether it be because of Smash or finding a random Let's Play by Chugga Conway on YouTube. Xenoblade 1 was the first JRPG I ever got interested in, and it's what really introduced me to the world of JRPGs. And I have a lot to thank for Xenoblade 1, not to mention that the story is phenomenal in my opinion. I love the story. I love every single character. The revenge plot to start, and then you know revelations towards the second half of the game, and what happened, who Shulk is, and what happened to him, and just everything about it. Even the combat system, I would rather play. The thing about two's combat system is that I the tutorials made that combat system way too hard for its own good, and I feel like even then, once I got it and once I understood, there are a lot of like compared to like 1 and 3, the combat in 2 felt very slow and sluggish to me at least. It felt very slow and sluggish, and the one term that's thrown around when it comes to describing Xenoblade 2's combat is damage sponge, and to an extent, it's absolutely true. Once I got it, the combat moved a bit faster, but it still wasn't for me. And Xenoblade 1, I feel like even though you had to like scroll to find the freaking arts and blah blah blah, I still had a lot of fun doing that over Xenoblade 2. And the music, while not as good as 2 or 3's, is still really really good. The big open environments still look really great, even especially in Definitive Edition. Even in the first game they look great, but especially in Definitive Edition these look great. And it's just a game that has a soft spot in my heart. Moving on to the top 3. Oh boy, to talk about this one. To talk about this one without spoiling it. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I don't know how to talk about this game without spoiling it. I think it's actually impossible. Because this is absolutely a game that, if me talking about it won't do it justice, it's absolutely a game that you have to go play on your own. Because I would argue that this probably has the best story in any video game. Just story-wise, the best story in any video game. Ever. It's by far the most convoluted story I've ever experienced in a video game, and I am a Kingdom Hearts fan, but it's by far the most convoluted story in a game. And I'm not the biggest fan of RTS real-time strategy, Fire Emblem or Age of Empires combat. However, would you call Fire Emblem RTS? I don't know. You call that I don't know what you call Fire Emblem. I don't know what you would call Fire Emblem in this case, but it's like that. And I'm not the biggest fan of that type of combat, but 13 Sentinels I think does it really well. All the characters, the fact that you juggle the entire game between 13 protagonists, and while it is kind of messy, it's very convoluted. They manage, once it all comes together, ignore my dog. They manage to handle it so well, and it's just great. It's great. Without spoiling the entire plot of the game, because you really need to go play it yourself. It's all PlayStation and Switch. It is really, really good. Number 2. Alrighty. The game that I am looking most forward to talking about. Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The latest entry in the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, and the reason why I didn't talk about this game while talking about Xenoblade 1. Xenoblade 3, I think, takes the combat system of both games, the best of both worlds when it comes to combat, and it is why it's probably the best Xenoblade combat system. Yeah, it just takes the best of both worlds, combine it, fine-tunes both of the systems, where it takes the UI format from 2, and a decent amount of the break launch a decent amount of all that stuff from 1, as well as like the recharging aspects for each sets of characters, whether it be Noah, Lons and Uni, or Mio, Tainan, Mio, Tainan, and Senna. I think it takes everything and just mixes it together, gets rid of fusion combos and visions. It takes the best parts of each of the game's combat systems, fuses it, and it is the best Xenoblade combat system, in my opinion. And the story, while the story has its hiccups at times, it is just one that I thoroughly enjoyed a lot. Like, I think it's my favorite story in a Xenoblade game, because while I can appreciate what they went for with 2, is that I wasn't too crazy about it. And of course, I love 1 story with all my heart, but 3, I feel like there are definitely directions where they took it in, like Origin and everything with that, and the villains weren't great by all means. The villains weren't great. Like the main standouts were M and N and M, and even then they were fine. I really enjoyed those characters a decent amount of time, but other half of the time I was like, there were a couple of things they could have done better with it. But just the massive open world, the characters, and every side quest feels very important. Feels important to the overall plot to the point where it feels criminal to skip a side quest. Like I feel like you can't skip a single side quest in this game because they all feel so important to the general story of the game and how the game goes that even side content in this game is ridiculously fun. And this is the only video game that has ever made me cry, cry like a baby. But yeah, would highly recommend Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Play 1 and 2 first. You don't have to. It is technically a standalone story, but I think some of these moments will hit harder if you have played 1 or 2 first, especially like towards the end of the game. They'll hit way harder. But yeah, would highly recommend Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But number 1, the masterpiece, the best game I've ever played, and I'd argue one of the best just games ever made, in my opinion. I just would recommend this to anybody. It doesn't matter if you like JRPGs or not. You have to play it. It's Final Fantasy VI. Man, this game, what can I say about this game that hasn't been said already? Final Fantasy VI, it's been out for 23 years, so I mean, I don't really think I don't think I have to worry about, too much spoilery things. But Final Fantasy VI, in a word, masterpiece. Every character, well, okay, that's not true. Not every character gets screen time or the development that they might want, but to be fair to them, there are 14 characters in this entire game. Not every character gets that screen time and development, but the ones that do is just really, 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 really good. And even then, some of the characters that don't get as much are still very enjoyable to use or see their backgrounds whenever you get to see it. I think the best example of that is Gal. While not my personal favorite, seeing where he came from and his background was still it still hit a bit hard for me. And it was still really good to see. And the combat, this ATB battle system, as like sort of close to like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, that kind of battle system. If you've played those games, they're great. It's great. It's really good. It's really good combat. And let me say, the music is just chef's kiss. Dancing Mad as a whole was just so good. Like, so good. Putting that entire song together, then you get to the last part of that song. It's so good. It's a masterpiece. Terra's theme is phenomenal. The opera theme, the Figaro Castle, whatever it was called, or I can't remember what it was called. It was just so good. The music was great. And, man, overall, it's like halfway through the game when you get like, Kefka is just the best villain in any video game, in my opinion. Because the thing about Kefka is Kefka wins halfway through, and it does the whole Dragon Quest. I call it doing the Final Fantasy VI thing, but it's similar to Dragon Quest, in which they everything goes horribly wrong, and they have to go back and save each other. It's the same thing with Final Fantasy VII. They have to go back and find each other to beat Kefka, but it feels more dire. It feels worse in Final Fantasy VI. And I mean, what I mean feels worse, I mean it feels better. It feels better, right? Feels worse by this, I mean it feels like a more dire situation. It feels like a situation in which we have to do this. Everybody is suffering. And it feels more intense than the other games. It feels like, okay, we have to go grab everybody, and we are going to absolutely annihilate that freaking monstrosity on top of that tower. And at times it was just very heartbreaking to see what happened, especially with Celeste after everything went horribly wrong, and depending on what you did and the route that you did and how fast you were. Celeste tries to kill herself, and it's very, very, very depressing. But overall, I think Final Fantasy VI is a masterpiece, and I would just go out. It's on sale right now in the Steam store, and it'll be coming to Switch and PlayStation soon. So go play it. It's so good. It's so good. My favorite game of all time. Let me know what your favorite game of all time is. Had a lot of fun making this list and kind of just figuring out the spots of this list. But yeah, that's my top 10 games of all time. See you next time. Goodbye.